Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot. Each episode, I bring a different business leader or entrepreneur who's doing game-changing work. And this episode, no different. I'm super delighted to speak with Julie Steelman, who's the founder of Prosperous Feminine, and we're going to have a great conversation. Take a listen. Hi, Julie. Great to have you.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing for everybody. This is amazing.
Thank you so very much. First question, always awesome. And the answers are always delightful. So I can't wait to hear yours. So, Julie, what was your first job?
What was my first job? Oh my gosh. Let me go back that far. I worked at a place called Poppin' Fresh Pies in Naperville, Illinois, and it was all about the pie. And I was a waitress, and it was awful.
Why was it awful?
I think just, that in that date and time, people really looked at you as more of like a servant, and you really had to do a lot of people pleasing, and they wanted you to chat them up, but then they wanted you to shut up when they wanted, like, it was kind of hard to read. And just stuff like, oh, my pie isn't hot enough, or the blueberries aren't good. Can I have, lemon meringue instead, and like the fussiness, which was like, it wasn't even expensive, but there was this fussiness about everybody.
You're like, it's not that serious. It's pie, y'all.
It's like not that deep.
It is pie. Straight up, it is pie.
Right?
Wow. I can see how that can be a pain behind. I can see that can totally be a pain behind.
Yeah.
All right. So we go from pie to where we are now. How did this to Prosperous Feminine? It's like, how did we get there? How did that happen?
Oh God. Well, I'd have to go back to when I was like 6 years old. Honestly, what happened is our family would watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And those of you that are really young, you can actually search for it and watch really crappy old video of a TV show that was a staple for those of us in the 60s and the 70s. And see, I'm dating myself right there, but I remember watching the videos of the lions and the leopards and the giraffes. And I had one of those like super profound moments of chills. And this thing came through me that said, you have to go to Africa before you die. And I was like kind of looking around the room going, who said that, And then as I was looking around the room at my parents and my 3 older brothers, they were conservative. We grew up in Chicago. People didn't go to Africa, and this other thing came through that was like this direct imperative of, you need to make your own money. And I was like, they're never going to pay for it. They're never going to let you go. They're going to totally control the whole thing, because they were very overprotective parents. And I came out of the womb screaming freedom. So there was a little bit of incompatibility there. And, through the years, that became my sole focus, SOUL and SOLE focus of something. I have to go to Africa before I die. Like, it was this direct imperative, put a stake in the ground, that has to happen. And I started making a lot of choices. And one of the things, like the job at Poppin' Fresh Pies, was like, you will die working here if you follow this model of working for someone else and trying to please a customer to see how much money you can get as a tip. And they're going to tax you on your tips. And it was like, to me, my dad nurtured me financially from a young age. So my little business model brain was like, this is not workable. This is like, you're getting nowhere and you hate it. And you have to wear back then, the ugly white rubber shoes with the fake heel on them. Oh my God. And wash the blueberries off your shoes every day. And I was like, this is not for me. And so my choices in college and on through college and high school and all that all led to, I need to make my own money. And so I ended up in corporate America, and that was a mixed bag at the beginning. And then I figured out that I needed to be in sales because it was the ticket out of town, and I didn't have to sit in a cubicle with some dude in an office tracking when I came back from lunch and when I went to lunch, right? That whole scenario felt like caged animal. It didn't make sense to me. And, so I started to discover that I needed to become very self-empowered, very sovereign, and really alter my mindset and my relationship with money and my value and my worth, or I was never going to get out of there. And so I went into the sales organization and I was in sales. My clients were big household brands. We were launching the internet. It was kind of a crazy time. They were all throwing all their ad dollars at television and they didn't understand what the internet could do for them. And all of a sudden I got lit up. I was like, oh, cool. I can be a radical and I can go disrupt the television advertising market. And that sounded fun to me. And I realized that I had a gift of being able to translate the less than obvious to people who really wanted new advertising solutions. And then I figured out that because I was good at that, I could fast track my exit. And so I started tripling my revenue every single quarter and treating my business, my job, I should say, as if it was my own entrepreneurial business. And I had this wicked mindset shift that was, I'm the talent. And what I meant by that was no matter what I was selling or what I was representing or where I went, I would always be good at what I was doing. No one could ever take that away from me. And I wasn't successful because of the job, because of the product, or because of the company. I was successful because of me. And so this whole shift into I'm the talent was kind of the catalyst and what I want to share with your listeners about when we can do all this second guessing and trying to listen to everybody else and do what seems popular and people please and make sure we're still being taken seriously, we forget our own inner sovereignty and we don't listen to our own instincts. And my instincts are what saved my bum and had me retire at 47 financially free.
Wow. That is amazing.
And so here we are, because all my friends said, you have to teach me how to do what you did. And so that's where the Prosperous Feminine came about.
All right. Now, this is amazing. So teach us. How do we do this?
The first thing I want to say to everybody, and it doesn't matter if you have a corporate background or you have your own business or you're a professional and you have your own practice, that there's this overarching thing, especially in the US society, of that someone or something owns you, that you're beholden to some standard, some metric, some weird measurable thing that you have to live up to. And so in our businesses or our practices, oftentimes we set them up and we work them and try to grow our business through the lens of, will everyone still take me seriously? Right? And so we are always at effect of what we think other people are thinking about us. And it's one of the biggest profitability pitfalls ever, because your business can't grow if you don't grow. And so the first thing is you got to really let go of the idea that someone owns you. Because as soon as we let go of that, actually the blinders come off. And it's really hard to have an income breakthrough or really achieve the kind of prosperity people started a business for in the first place, was for freedom, service, and prosperity. That, like, everybody across the board that has their own business will tell you it's an amalgam of those three things.
Yep. When I was an entrepreneur, that was exactly what it was all about for me.
Yeah.
So once you let go of that, then what?
Yeah, then what? What you're going to find is that you have a whole set of what I call wild instincts, really good instincts. You know your people, you know your market, you know your clients, you're listening to what they're telling you. The biggest misunderstanding about sales is that people think they have to be smarter than someone, or they have to know more than someone, and that they have to prove themselves in order for the client to say yes. The truth is, if you listen to a client, they'll tell you exactly what they want. They'll tell you exactly when they want it. They'll tell you exactly how they want it. And if you incorporate that into your conversation, because you're actually listening to them, you have to be in a related field with them, right? So this wild instinct, you take those blinders off of worrying about everyone else taking you seriously, and all of a sudden you have an idea. All of a sudden you're open to innovation. All of a sudden you want to do something different than what the models say you should do, or what your coach says you should do, or whatever program you're in says you should do. And you kind of incorporate the learnings, and then you run them through your own intelligence, right? Because a lot of us got really far on instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Like this morning, I woke up and I went, I'm working on a launch and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I know there's people in my world who want something now. They don't want to go through the email sequence. They don't want to go through the master class. They don't want to go through the 3-day challenge. They don't want to just like tell them what the thing is. Stop putting it behind a shroud. Tell them what the thing is and invite them in. And I wrote an email in 10 minutes and I made an offer for 5 women to come into a thing next week. And here's exactly what we're going to do at this time, and this time. We're going to meet for 4 hours and we're going to accelerate your income. That's what we're going to do. And it's like, immediate response. And it's like my instinct told me to do that. And it was just because I was listening. And so I think the other part of when you stop worrying about other people are thinking and you realize that no one owns you, that is such a scarcity place to come from, because we're always shifting, pivoting, and editing based on worrying about being okay, instead of worrying about what's of the highest service for the people around me who want what I have.
Oh, you're just like preaching a testimony here.
It's church.
It's very much a church situation. So, I mean, awesome. How do we put this into practical advice? So a lot of time, especially for corporate folks, you're selling to brands and like they're trying to figure out like how to like make themselves look good. So they don't get fired. Like, so they do the least conservative, they do the most conservative thing because, no one ever got fired for doing a TV commercial. Like, how do you get people past that to sort of like go towards innovation? Like, what are some of those like extra oomph steps you got to take?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that I really had to shift the idea around that our culture and society really focuses on brain power. And I think if you shifted into your heart power, then you would understand that we're not pinging the universe is pinging us. And that just by being in a state of curiosity, all kinds of new ideas and all kinds of things that haven't been tried or things that haven't been done, that you were given a path for a reason. And there's a way to navigate that path that only you can navigate in the way you would navigate it. And so when we're abdicating authority to others telling us what we should do next and how to do it, and we all need guidance, right? I'm not saying we don't, and we all need allies. We can't do any of this by ourselves. But if you take all that in and you just listen to what's in season, what's lighting up for you, what feels generative, what feels expansive versus what feels contractive. If the $1 million marketing coach shows up and says, you must do this in the next 5 minutes, and your heart goes, ugh, are you going to listen to the $1 million coach, or are you going to listen to your heart? There's an innate wisdom in us that put us on a path, that answered a call to say yes to do what we're doing. That doesn't stop because we said yes. It actually wants more of our attention now. Now here's how you do the thing. Now here's the next right step. And it's like it has to become an ability to develop self-trust in your instincts and what you're hearing. I tell people all the time, you don't have a money problem, you have a self-trust problem. That if you would listen to your inner instincts, right now, every single person is sitting with a challenge. And if I said to you, here's my advice on what I would tell you to do with that challenge, but more importantly, what does your instinct say to do with that challenge? And you followed that, that's when you uncover magic. That's when you get in your vein of gold. And business owners who are very into their heart wisdom are rarely unstoppable. Or
Wow.
rarely stoppable, I should say.
So, like, what is like the one thing that you think people could do to tap into their heart wisdom?
That's such a good question. I think when you're faced with something the urge to go into panic or the urge to go into speeding up is it's actually a time to slow down. And it's a time to, I wonder what the best outcome of this challenge could be. Then all of your problem solving capabilities and the universe and all the invisible forces that are working on your behalf start to organize around the answer to that question. Like I go to bed with a specific question on my heart, and I wake up oftentimes with words coming out of my mouth, names of things coming out of my mouth, ideas and strategies. I wake up into them. And I think it's a potent state. One question, not a whole mishmash of everything that's going on, but like, what's the primary question that relates to your biggest priority in your business right now? And just put it up into a curiosity bubble right before you go to sleep. I wonder how I could get 5 clients by the end of the year. I wonder with this thing that just broke down, how I could turn it into the greatest win, and then let it go and listen to the answers that come in unexpected ways.
I really love that, because I think sometimes instead of going to bed with this like insane anxiety of like, oh my God, I've got to do these five projects, otherwise I'm not going to have enough money. It's like, as opposed to, it's even a positive, like, what can I do to win those 5 next clients before the end of the year? And it already sets your brain in a more positive standpoint versus, oh my God, if I don't, versus what can I do? Even that mindset is just shift is so important.
Yeah, like even in you just saying that, can you feel the energy shift around? It's like, oh, I got to complete these 5 tasks and then I'll did it. So a lot of times we almost put our task load above prioritizing what the priority is. And so one of the ways that I like to talk about this is, if your priority is income, if there's an urgent financial need, or you're trying to end the year out at a particular thing, or you got to pay taxes, or baby needs new shoes, whatever, right? Is like, if you're, $20,000 away from being in a profit zone you want to be in, why wouldn't you try? Like you can't fail. And it's like, the thing is, we have to reorient our priorities. If income is a priority, you have to reorient your thinking, your questions, your priorities, and your output around creating in flow. And so when we get with heavy task list, it's a lot of quote output, right? And does that output create income? And so when people come to me with an urgent financial need in their business, I'm like, everything gets set to a side for the next 5 weeks. Just put it to all the projects, the ideas, the startups, the da 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 da. It's like, if they are not income generating tasks, or doing a thing for the next 6 weeks doesn't directly or very closely indirectly generate income, you got to put them to the side. And because we have to reorient our whole system around creating income, generating income. It's a generative state, right? Generating income. You can feel energy movement in that, right? Like it starts to mobilize money, and you stay in that inquiry for 5-6 weeks, you're going to have a breakthrough in your income. But the doing and the to-do list and the dabbling, a lot of that is hiding. And a lot of those things aren't priorities because they aren't income producing things. Is this making any sense?
100% sense. Like I said, it's very much can you think about how you can actually make money versus thinking about the steps to make money.
Yeah, there's a, the law of attraction, you can go really spiritual on this, but to break it down, money is energetic and it's physical. It's masculine and it's feminine. It's meditative and it's action oriented. When you have both pieces together is when you win. So if you work on only the metaphysical side of it and increasing your abundance or your attractor field or your inner prosperity, that's great. But if you don't ever take any action from that place of having shifted your consciousness around it, nothing's going to happen, because you're basically praying for a windfall. Windfalls happen, they're not common. So it's not a good business model, but it's like
Right.
from the new perspective of an inner or consciousness prosperity shift, what action would you take in alignment with making that so? Right? And then it's like this morning, I made an offer. I wasn't going to do that in 24 hours ago. I didn't even think about it. But I woke up and I went, there's people on my list who want something now that don't want the master class. They don't want the email sequence. They don't want to go through the whole blah, blah, blah of a launch. They want something now. And it worked. But it worked because I wasn't applying a strategy to them. I was listening to the field.
Yeah, well, I think a big part about a lot of this is the listening, because like
Yeah.
actively listening and figuring out what people are what people are really saying without them actually directly saying it is an art and a science. Because what is the thing that those folks want, and how can you get them to that thing that they want?
Yes.
But by actually listening to them, by saying like, I need to do this. Well, actually, you do need to do this as well as this, because you can figure out where else they can be going, how else they can, look great to their bosses. What's another way for them to get a win internally or even
Yeah.
externally? And thinking in those terms, and it's very, I know it's why I always say to folks, like, get to know your clients. Like, they're not gonna just be the people who you are always calling on, but like you actually build a relationship with them. And if you build a relationship, your active listening gets so much better and understanding what those folks actually want versus, I'm just going to try to sell them on this list of things I'm supposed to sell them on.
Yeah, that I'm gonna tell you something about that. I'm watching a world where any lack of empathy, any lack of humanity, any unwelcoming of vulnerability is not going to sell shit. I'm watching people who've built 80 to $100 million companies whose energetic signature has shifted because they're only about the money, and people are dropping like flies and they don't know why. And it's like we are in a world that is on fire. There's a lot going on politically. There's a lot going on society wise. There's a lot going on with diversity and inclusion and equity. There's a lot going on with gender identity. And we have this clash of many different generations, many different age groups coming together. And the world of AI, we can AI this conversation. But if it's lacking in humanity, if your marketing is lacking in humanity, your offer is lacking in humanity, some person already AI'd the same dang thing an hour ago. And what's going to stand out, what's going to work is making space for being in a relational field. You have to create experiences for people. You have to actually see them. You have to actually listen to them in a way that they know they got heard. You have to communicate that. Anything less than that going forward is going to be really hard, especially if you're a digital marketer or that's how you generate, your leads from, is some of these really big, significant leaders that are about the money. The veil of inauthenticity is really easy to see through right now.
You can definitely see it. And it's interesting that you say that, because like the first tenet of our four tenets within my team is humanity. Next
Yeah.
one is authenticity. Next
Oh,
one is inclusivity. And the last one is respect. It spells hair.
love it.
Oh, so easy for you to remember. But like when we think about what is important, it is the humanity of it all. Like I don't,
Yeah.
like folks are like, how do you know all these people? Because I actually take the time to meet people.
Mhm.
Like, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I give away a lot of this information for free. It's like, here you go. I'm happy to give you a cheat code about how to do this. I like, because there's no reason that you have to hold all this knowledge in for yourself. It's like no one. I think sometimes people think that like if I don't share how I did what well, X Y Z, then I'll hold on to forever, and someone won't jump over me. I'm like, no, the person works with you because it's you, and someone that you
Yes.
groom along the way It's not going to jump over you to that client because the client has a relationship with you. They love you. And if you point out and point them in the right direction, that's all you can ever ask for. Because that relationship goes long. I've had relationships with clients for over a decade. Because I got to know them. I got to, predict a little bit more about what they were looking for, how they were able to find some things, what you could do for them as a win. And it could be something that wasn't huge. It's just like, hey, do y'all need a holiday party? Like, would that be good for your team's morale to like get them to have a good time at a holiday party? Cool, we'll do that. But like the same idea of like how you can build those relationships, how you can, get away from having this. I think it's very much a scarcity scared mindset where folks tend to fall down versus having an abundant mindset where it's like, yeah, cash moves all everything all around me. Yeah, cool, awesome. As opposed to like, I don't have it.
Yeah.
And that, I think that shift in the brain is so necessary, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because obviously, you eat what you kill. But it can't come from this like point of desperation.
Yeah, no, because metaphysically your energy is shut down. You're in a closed, you're in a contracted state. And I think however you know yourself, right? Whether if you're an emotional person and you know when you're going into fear, what that feels like versus what it feels like to be in a generative state, which is what curiosity really opens up. And it's also that we're in human soup, right? Because we're on the earth. So there's a lot going on, society, culture, globally, even in your own family, that can feed a lot of the fear, right? Especially like turn off the news. It's all about hardcore. Remember, I don't know, back in the day, it was the news. And this happened on the street corner, da da da. Now it's the action news and da 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 da. Make sure you don't miss out and da, 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 and all the FOMO that it creates. And everything is sped up. Everything is aggressive. Everything has all these adjectives in front of it. And it's like you got to remember yourself and your center. When you do, I like to look at it this way. There's more than enough money on the planet for every human being to have more than enough. Period. If that's my truth, how do I redirect some of it my way so those who want what I can give them get it? That's it. And that becomes a metaphysical question, an energetic statement, and you're looking for the answer to what's the next best action I can take. Those kind of questions keep you out of scarcity mindset. People ask me, how do you change a scarcity mindset forever? And I'm like, well, you change your mindset forever. You just stop indulging it, kind of. People talk about money stories all the time. It's like, that's fictional in the first place. Changing your money story has to be experiential. So stop trying to change your money story and actually change your priorities towards income. And then what would you do if my priority is income? If I'm listening to the field of my client base, what do I see that's missing? Maybe you're smarter than you've given yourself credit for.
Well, that's a huge one. And I think that's a big thing that folks seem to forget. And like when folks always ask, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm curious, chill, and kind. And it's like, it literally is the thing. But the curious is first because like, never look at something as that's the only thing you can find. And what can fuel your curiosity? Talking to people, talking to all different types of people.
Yeah.
I'm always consistently amazed by the stuff that comes knocking on my way where I'm like, what? Oh, awesome, great. And it's amazing opportunities. It's, things to speak at or do. And it invariably comes from this genuine curiosity that I have. And I think as marketers, it's an imperative to continually have this endless curiosity and not be stifled by what your position and or title might be. Because there's always something you can learn. There's always something that you can grow from. And when you fuel your curiosity, like jet fuel, that leads to innovation. That leads to new ideas. It leads you to think of stuff, right? I hadn't thought about it. I should talk to blah, blah, blah. And then you're off to the races. It's like none of this stuff is hard. It is so much of a mindset shift that you have to have.
Yeah, it's like you have to really step into owning your brilliance. You have to step into seeing yourself as you trusted yourself to start the thing that you're doing. Why don't you trust yourself to build the thing you want?
I think that's the title of this podcast. Trust yourself to build the thing you want. Uh, and it's so necessary. You have had an amazing career and, are helping so many folks. What do you think you'd tell 21-year-old Julie today?
Oh my God. Some of it's probably I shouldn't say in public, but
That's fine.
um, you know, I think what I would tell 21-year-old Julie is stop focusing on what other people think and start focusing on what you know.
Focus on what you know, because you know a lot. I think that's the other part. People don't realize that they know a ton. You do. I'm like, and it's so necessary for folks to understand that, like, you do know a lot. Um, you continually surprise yourself by, like, you don't give yourself enough credit for how awesome you actually are.
Yeah.
So obviously you're working with folks all the time, and like all the energy kind of goes into kind of helping people kind of turn those ships around for themselves. What does Julie do for Julie? What do you do for your self-care?
What do I do for my self-care? Well, I'm an award-winning wildlife photographer, and so I get in as much of that as I can on a weekly basis. I'll go out on the ocean or I'll go walking in nature and see what shows itself to me. But I think that for anybody listening, it's been the greatest thing that's allowed me to hone my instinct. It's allowed me to listen to myself, is to really being in nature, deep nature, not in a deep conversation in nature, but going out a little bit alone in nature and going for a walk and just like giving yourself some movement and some space to slow things down. And because I relate to animals so much and I read habitats and track behavior is how I get the images that I get, is really about a different kind of inner listening. We have so many more senses than we give ourselves credit for. And in the way to tap into that is what's the thing that brings you the most joy, where you feel like you've been transported to another time. And when you go do that for an hour or 2 hours, you come back and it feels like the slate is clean. Do more of that. Do more of that. My most productive business ideas and understandings come from when I'm out there cleaning the slate. And I pick up a lot of life lessons from animal behavior because nature is loaded with blueprints on how to thrive at every level of a habitat. And if you start to pay attention to nature in that way, you can go out, talk to a tree and solve your biggest business problem, I promise you.
You're not the first person to tell me that, actually. So, and I actually do believe it. I think there is something to being out in fresh air and actually breathing the air and paying attention to the world around you. And if you don't live nearby the wildlife, just still go outside.
Just
Literally
go.
go
If you
outside.
don't have to be by the wildlife, maybe that
Go
freaks
go
you
for a
out.
walk. But go outside.
Go to a botanical garden or go outside and walk around the block in your neighborhood. Something's going to get your attention, I promise.
Yeah, it is very. I still do my Sunday walks, and it's just like, and it comes in really handy, and because, like, again, it gives you a fresh view of the world,
Yeah.
and you'd be surprised at what pops into your head, and what solutions pop into your head, which you hadn't even thinking about. So I am a big proponent of that, and I also love the casual flex of you being like, oh, so yeah, I am a award-winning wildlife photographer, just FYI, I keep it moving. Casual flex. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like, Julie, you have, like, I feel like you've packed so much in this conversation. It's kind of like even hard to unpack it all. So I'll ask two last questions. First one, do you have a give or an ask of the audience?
Um, yeah. What if for the next week you actually took yourself seriously and thought that and understood that deep inside of you somewhere you have the answer to everything that you need?
Love that.
try it on like a coat.
All
5 days. 5 days.
That's a great challenge. I think I'll do it myself as well.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear.
And then last question, because it's the holiday season, what are you most grateful for right now?
Oh, I've really come to a season in my life where I understand every moment that's led to this, every tragedy, every heartbreak, every struggle, every dark time, every good time, friends coming, friends going, doors opening, doors closing, has all led to the conversations that I can have now and the abilities that I have, and that I've always listened to myself. And I'm grateful for whatever reason I came through this time and I knew that without being taught it, because it's led me on the most epic journey that you could never logic or plan out. And so I'm really grateful to who I've become and how I've let everything be a contribution.
Wow. Love that. Knew you has to be amazing. Julie, I mean, my gosh, you have stopped the record here and gotten so many people to listen, myself included. It's been so amazing to have you on the podcast, and we'll put all the details in the show notes for folks to find you and like have you talk your talk. And help them, tap into that, prosperous feminine. Thank you so very much for being on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Laura. I love what you're about and what you're doing for people, and your voice is so needed, and your approach and your vibe. And it's such a gift to spend time with you, and I'm really grateful.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. This was an absolute delight. As I said, it's always awesome to just, be endlessly curious, and that's why I love doing this podcast, because I meet so many amazing people. So thank you so much. And that is our show.